A Woman's Response to The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi. Reading this part of the chapter really stopped me. And it was very early in the chapter too. But I looked at it and it just didn't seem right. It didn't seem right that a woman uses sex to qualify to a man before the relationship, before the long-term relationship. And then once commitment's been established, really sees it as a tool for manipulating a man into compliance. That doesn't seem right to me. So I thought about it a while. And I think the thing that Tomassi fails to mention in this chapter regarding sex in a long-term relationship is the value of sex and the utility of sex as a pair bonding behavior, a continuation of a pair bond. People don't just establish a pair bond, get married. People don't just get married and then say, all right, that's it, we're done. We don't have to do anything to maintain this. It's just a self-maintaining system, and that's it. That's not how a pair bond works. It's not how it works in humans, and it's not how it works in animals. There are way too many National Geographic documentaries out there showing the courtship behaviors of lifelong partnered animals to each other. Birds in particular are very flamboyant with their mating rituals. But this isn't something that you just, okay, we got into the long-term relationship. We got the apartment together. We got married. We're done. And I think it's important that people know that. Everybody tells you that. And when I say everybody, I mean all the people with all the old, chewed over advice that you've heard a million times. It's terribly cliched. It's terribly boring. That advice, never stop dating. Well, never stop dating. It's not bad advice. I think that there are many reasons that women have sex inside of a committed long-term relationship that have nothing to do with manipulating a man into complying with them or cooperating with what they want. And so reading through that, I had to stop and think, like, really, really, is this one of those things? And there have been several moments like that in the book where I read it and it's like, my knee-jerk reaction is to disagree. So now I have to stop and think, is he right? And am I just not seeing it? Or is he wrong? Is he wrong? And I think on this particular issue, he is not correct. I think that sex inside of a marriage doesn't necessarily continue for the sole, driving purpose of either rewarding or denying a man sex just to manipulate him into doing things you want him to do. And I don't think that it happens just so that you can assure that he's not going to wander off and cheat with some other woman. I think it's more complicated and a little bit more nuanced than that. And I think it encompasses a broader range of things. Sex within a relationship it's comforting and it's pleasurable, and it releases lots of chemicals that make you feel close and bonded to your partner. That's why you should have sex after you get married. It's good for you. It serves a lot of purposes, and one of the purposes that it serves is to strengthen the pair bond. Sex is like relationship glue. If you keep having sex in your relationship, and if you keep your sex life, active together with each other, it doesn't mean you have to be having sex every single night, but if you keep up an active sex life with your partner, it draws the two of you closer together. You're physically together with each other. You're being affectionate with each other, because people who are having sex are generally pretty physically affectionate in the process. You're releasing lots and lots of very, very powerful bonding chemicals. It serves so many purposes in that way, and it keeps the two of you from, drifting apart. And drifting apart isn't necessarily he wanders off and has sex with a younger, prettier woman. Drifting apart could be you as the woman, avoiding wandering off and having sex with some other man because you've got a steady source of sex for yourself. You have a solid relationship. You're constantly showing each other physical affection. I think that to narrow down the utility of sex within a long term committed relationship to just one of my kids is playing with a toy. It's their bedtime. She's supposed to be asleep. If you narrow it down to just women trying to strong arm men into complying with them, which, by the way, I don't think is very healthy at all, or to women trying to prevent men from having an affair, to women, having this competition anxiety. It sounds really unhealthy, and I don't think that it begins to scratch the surface of the broad spectrum of benefits that sex gives to a married couple. And so, is he right? Are these the deep, dark, underlying subconscious drives that cause women in relationships to have sex, or is there so much more depth to it, and so much more to the sexual act inside of a marriage than just that top layer of, oh, if I don't keep sleeping with him, he's going to find it somewhere else, or oh, you know what, he's not doing what I want him to do, I better threaten not to have sex. I think it's deeper. I think there's more to it. Yeah, I'm not sure how true that is. That's one of those all women do this. And I mean, I was willing in the last video to make the little bell curve video and say, look, some people do these behaviors at such a very low rate that it's not perceptible, but that doesn't mean they don't do the behavior. But even then, I'm looking at this one and thinking, I did have a conversation one time with my husband about me denying him sex if he didn't do something I wanted. And it was not a serious conversation. It was a very playful conversation. It was a very humorous conversation because I knew what he was going to answer before he answered. The truth is, my husband's willpower is immensely stronger than my own. I'm a female, I'm hypergamous, I'm very aware of my hypergamous nature. I found a man with, more intelligence, more willpower, more of everything really. Um, not necessarily not necessarily the measurable things. Everybody when they talk about hypergamy, they talk about, more money or more education or better looks, something you can measure, something you can see, something that you can scientifically calculate. But there are many, many ways to be more. And my husband was more than I was in so many ways. And he was everything I could possibly have asked for, and then more on top of that. But when it comes to willpower, he definitely has me beat. And he was very much aware, and I was very much aware that I am very attracted to him. And so, at the least indication that he's interested in having sex with me, I'm there. I go, off I go, I'm ready for it. So the idea of me denying him sex was just, it was so laughable. So when I brought it up, I wasn't serious. I was kind of laughing about it, like, what would you do if I said something, idiotic like that? And he just told me, he told me, the problem with that plan of action is, you need it more than I do, and you're gonna break before I do. It was very, very true. So when it comes to, there isn't a woman on the planet who doesn't take her sexual agency into account, it's like, well, I took it into account, but I really didn't have anything to really bargain with there. So, I mean, does it count as taking it into account? I mean, I suppose that technically counts, Does it affect any of our interactions? Like, especially after being together for 9.5 years? It's like, well, no, because we had that conversation way back in the beginning, and we both know that, there's no way it would work. And I don't think it would be fair to do something like that anyway. I don't think it would be healthy to the relationship to do something like that anyway. So, would I do it? No. Even if I could do it, I don't know what kind of twisted, messed up situation would cause me to do something like that. I I mean, we just very easily dismissed with it at the very beginning when we were still just started dating. It's like, well, it wouldn't work to begin with, so there's no point in discussing it further. Like, it doesn't have any kind of bearing on our relationship. Does that count as taking it into account? Well, I mean, I guess I took it into account at some point and very rapidly dismissed it. Does that mean that I'm at the little tiny far end of the bell curve again? The more I read this book, the more I think that there are a lot of ways that I'm on the far end of this bell curve, which gives me some pause. I like this book. I really do. And I have recommended this book to people who are struggling with relationships with women. I cannot honestly tell if I am that unusual of a woman. But I've known other women who are unusual like I am, because there are only so many women that I can handle being around. And the women that I hang around with now, who are married, who are housewives and mothers, who are in committed relationships that are stable, it seems to me that those women don't play these little games either. And so there is this element of doubt that I experienced when reading this book. It's like, this is good advice for dealing with lots of women. I don't think it's entirely foolproof. And I don't think that it's necessarily a good picture of all women. I know that there are women who deny things about themselves that they don't want to face. But I don't think that's what I'm doing in all of these circumstances. I think there are several things that I've read here where it's like, yeah, I see other women doing that all the time, but do I do it? It's like, no, I really can't say that I do. I'll be talking with my husband about that. And, I'll mention something that I read in the book, and he's like, well, we really haven't had a problem with that. And it's like, no, we really haven't. Does that make me unusual? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. This section of the book was excellent. It was humorously written, it was playful, it was fun, it was very informative and very useful. And honestly, you should read the book for this section of the book alone, if for no other reason than that. I wish this information was more broadly available. I wish it was more broadly available to men. I wish it was more broadly available to women as well. There are too many people who do not understand how the sexual marketplace works. They don't understand what their sexual market value is. More importantly, they don't understand how their age is going to influence their sexual market value. There are too many young men in their early 20s who are very sexually frustrated, who don't know why they aren't more successful with women, who don't understand why things just aren't working out for them. And it's very frustrating for them, I'm sure, to hear, oh, just don't worry about it. It's going to take care of itself. But some of their problems will, in fact, take care of themselves if they just kind of relax and wait for some time to pass and watch their sexual market value escalate. At the same time, women are being given that advice. I remember being 20 and being just very upset because I had no potential mates. There were men, they were not attractive to me. It was not a particularly large selection of men. I felt like none of them were particularly viable. I wasn't attracted to them at all. It's like if somebody showed you a doorknob and asked you if you thought it was sexy. Is this a sexy doorknob? Well, it's a doorknob. Well, yes, but is it sexy? It's like, do I have to choose? do I have to pick out which of these doorknobs is the most sexy? Because none of them are doing it for me. It was so frustrating. And when I mentioned it to people, when I said anything about it, I got the same old platitudes like, oh, but you're still young. Just give it time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. My life was unusual in that it was very messed up very early on. By the time I got out of high school, I was a train wreck and I had to fix myself, and that took years. And it probably shouldn't have taken that long, but I was doing it on my own and I didn't have help. So, yeah, it took some time. It took some figuring out. On top of that, I had to learn how to date. I had to learn how to talk to men. I had to learn how to flirt with men. I had to learn how to interact with the opposite sex. And I didn't know how to do that. And the men that were available to me were not remotely attractive, which made it much more difficult because I can fake being attracted to men. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm not attracted to those men. I faked an entire relationship. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to. It was my first relationship, so of course I bungled it horribly. But I never would have had to do that if I'd had better options available to me. If there were actually men that I was actually able to feel any kind of attraction for at all, I wouldn't have been trying to fake a relationship and make that work for me somehow, because these are the guys you've got to choose from. I was very desperate to get out of that situation. Desperate enough to become an exotic dancer. Desperate enough to leave my hometown and go to a city where many of my acquaintances frequently told me, you're going to get robbed, you're going to get shot. People die in cities, it's horrible. You don't want to go there. It's like, yes, I do. I'd rather die in a city than stay here and live out my life alone. And let's not kid ourselves. If I have to live out my life in this place, I am going to live it alone. And I don't want that. I was in such a damn hurry. And people told me I was being silly. And people told me I had plenty of time. And now I'm 33. I'm married. I have kids. 3 kids. I'd like more kids, but I've got 3. 3's a nice number, you know. I might not ever be able to have another kid, so 3 might be it. I have achieved with my youth and my looks and my beauty everything that I wanted to achieve, everything that was necessary, everything that was time sensitive. My sexual market value is plummeting as we speak, and it's okay. I did what I needed to do. I look around at my peers, women my age. Where have all the good men gone? I was told I had time. I feel like I dodged a massive bullet. And I feel more and more like I dodged a bullet as the years go by and as I read more articles about 30-somethings who can't find a decent guy. You men need to step up and date me. No, they don't. Where have all the good men gone? Well, I got one in that room over there. Thank God. I'm not saying that young women should rush into marriage with the first available man they meet. God knows I didn't. I hunted around, I chatted up, flirted with thousands of men. Literally thousands. But when I found a good one, I snatched him out of the dating marketplace as fast as I could, and I held on for dear life. I did this at the absolute prime of my sexual market value. I'm very proud of that. It's more of a luck thing than anything else. I just happened to be lucky enough to meet him when I was 23, but at the same time, at the absolute peak of my prime, I grabbed the very best that I could get, and then I was done. There was no second guessing, no doubting, no, oh, I should try going back out into the marketplace again and see if I can upgrade for something better. It's like, no, this is it. This is it. This was the very best you could do at the very pinnacle of your abilities. There is no questioning after that. I know. And I'm incredibly satisfied and I'm incredibly peaceful. And I feel very happy because I was able to give him some of the sexiest years of my life. And that makes me happy because I remember when we first got together, and I was looking at this from a biological perspective. I had no idea that Tomassi's book existed at the time. I was telling him, right now you get a sexy young stripper. One of these days in the future, your sexual market value, I don't think I used the term sexual market value. I don't think I'd ever heard the term before, but your attractiveness is going to skyrocket because you're going to get older, you're going to become established, you're going to start making better money, you're going to have a career, you're going to have all this job experience under your belt, and you're going to be the kind of man that women fall all over themselves to get to. And I'm not going to be as pretty as I used to be. And I'm very happy that right now, when I'm a young, sexy stripper, you get to have me at my prime. We actually talked about that when we were engaged. Like, that actually happened. I didn't know any of the terminology, but yeah, this is a really good section of the book to read. Even if you don't want to read the book, you can always go to his blog and you can probably look it up. I recommend you do so. I think the more people who know about this, the more sane our dating marketplace is going to become. Because there are too many people, particularly women, with unrealistic expectations of what their dating value is actually going to be. And it doesn't do them any kind of service. And it doesn't do any kind of service for men. Everybody loses. So, yeah, this is a good chapter. Read this chapter. Definitely read this chapter. Well, that's an interesting quote to read immediately after talking about how I was very much aware that my sexual market value was going to plunge at a certain age. I've been thinking a lot about making a video about the story of 1001 Arabian Nights, the story of Scheherazade, specifically out of all those stories. I want to make a video about that, and at some point I'm going to make a video about that. Because I think that of all the fairy tales out there, and 1001 Arabian Nights is a fairy tale. Of all the fairy tales, I think that is the most clear example of the female hero myth, of the heroic female myth. The heroic male myth is, man goes out, man faces the dragon, man slays the dragon, man gets the gold. Or the hot woman. Or both. Frequently both. The female heroic myth is woman meets a king and seduces him. And he's not easy to seduce. And she seduces him with more than just her sexuality. I think I really want to make a video about that someday. I'm not going to do it right now, but just quickly, I knew going into my relationship with my husband that I wasn't going to stay young and pretty forever. As a stripper, that's something you become very aware of if you're paying any kind of attention. And I was paying attention. I loved my job. I could have done that job for decades and been happy. I would have done that job for decades and been very happy if it was more socially acceptable and I didn't think it was going to stigmatize my children, and if If I didn't age out of it so quickly. Women don't stay young forever. The thing is, when you're building up a relationship, and this is one of the reasons that I went on about rapport so much in the last video, the value of building rapport. Not building a friend zone, you don't want to do that, but building rapport. The reason that that is important is because if you're going to have a long-term relationship, it has to be built on a solid foundation. Think of it as a piece of architecture. People refer to it as a piece of architecture quite a lot. You have to have that solid foundation, and then you can let it grow organically up from there. You know, you introduce sex and the thing takes on a life of its own and it starts to grow and form. And the two of you as people, you know, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you begin to intertwine and become, well, to use the old phrase, to become one flesh. If all you have as a foundation for that relationship is sex, one of these days she's going to get older. And she's going to be, as Tomassi says, running around looking for a new a new schema. I don't have that problem. I'm getting older and older, and I don't ever look a day younger when I look into the mirror. And it doesn't matter. We've built our life together. We've built so much together. We bought this house together. We furnished it together. We had kids together. You know, just recently we bought a new bed because he's been having a horrible time sleeping on our old one. Like, the old mattress needed to be replaced, so we just went and bought a whole new bed. The bed that we built together. And so I was taking it apart and, you know, saving every piece of wood, and I was remembering, you know, building this stupid thing with him. And it's like, yeah, we built the bed that we've slept on for the last like 5 years together. I don't need sex to be the only thing that unites us. I don't need my youth and my attractiveness to be the only thing that draws us together. Do I still try to dress pretty for him? Do I still try to be alluring to him? Absolutely. Because I'm not going to get into because. There's too much because there for me to make this video like 3 hours long. You get the idea. I still try to be sexy for him. That's important. But one of these days, inevitably, I'm going to be old and wrinkly and I'm going to have gray hair, and it's not going to matter. Because everything that we have, we've built together. Everything that we do together, there's this rich interaction between us that doesn't need sex to fortify it. And that's very important. And I think that gets underrated. I think it gets underrated in the mainstream culture, and I think it gets severely underrated in the pickup artist community. You know, there's so many guys out there who are like, you know, I just want to have sex with lots of women. And I understand that many women, or many men coming into the pickup artist community just want to have sex with lots of women. And that's how they're getting in the door. And that's okay, you know. If you're trying to fix your life up from, I can't seem to get laid, I don't know why things keep not working, I can't seem to talk to really pretty women that I'm actually attracted to a lot. You know, if that's what gets you in the door and you need to learn those skills, the pickup artist community is great for that. If you're starting to go MGTOW and go, hey, you know what, I can't deal with women. I'm too tired of dealing with women. I don't know how to deal with women. I think women are crazy. You know, try some pickup artistry. Just try it. Try something different. Break up your usual routine. Listen to the advice of a bunch of guys who might or might not be sleazeballs, and try it out and see if it actually helps you. And if it helps you, then it helps. Whatever helps is what you need to be doing. And I say that as somebody who became a stripper, which is a very sleazy profession, in order to help myself, because I needed to do something. And I didn't know what to do, but I had to do something. You do the thing that works. But it is also very important to know that once you've figured out how to pick up women, once you've figured out how to break the ice and get a pretty woman interested in you, you still have to build up a relationship that isn't based on just sex. You can't just treat women like they're identical copies of the same psyche. You can't quite do that. Women are different, women vary, women are individuals. And so you can't just form a long-term pair bond with some woman who happened to look sexy and had no other qualifications. So that's pretty much it for this chapter. I'm going to be doing the next chapter next week, and we are coming closer and closer to the chapter that I reviewed the entire book for, which is hypergamy. I'm very excited about that. We're not quite there yet. I don't think we're going to be there next week, but I am really looking forward to that one. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next week, and I think that's all for now.